Today we talk to
Michele Zukovsky.
Where are you from?
Los Angeles, California.
How did you come to the clarinet?
My father played clarinet in the Los Angeles Filarmonic, and he was originally from New York, but he came to audition in Los Angeles because his teacher, Simeon Bellison, said, "Oh, go write some letters to Klemperer, and maybe he'll take you in the orchestra." So he tried out for Klemperer and got in. There was only one other person auditioning against him at the time in 1937.
What is never missing in your clarinet case?
What is never missing? Cork grease. Gotta have cork grease. I don't know, it's just one of those things you can see right away, that little thing where you put the little cork grease in, and then when the Brahms Third Symphony comes up, when you have to go change the clarinet really quickly, I call it the cork grease symphony. So,
Any advice that someone gave you and changed your life?
My life was different than most. Was your father a clarinet player too? No? Well, my father didn't talk too much. So he would play and I would just sort of imitate him. So I'm like a bad imitation of Kalman Block, my father. So, he would say, just play like this. And so he never said too many words, It's just sort of like, I was interviewed once before. It's like a cobbler and his assistant. So the cobbler would be pounding the shoe and I would just imitate it. And so that's the way I play the clarinet and approach music as well. I had many people that coached me. Manuel Kempinski from England, actually. And he coached me for 3 years on the Mozart quintet, various chamber pieces. And he also was phenomenal in just sort of making a way to talk so that I could understand as a 14-year-old.
Who were your clarinet teachers?
2 lessons with Mitchell Lurie, 3 lessons with Leon Rushinoff, 2 lessons with Dominic Farah, and I was in the orchestra at 18, so I knew it all, you know what I mean? Not true. I studied with Hans Nein, but I did take 1 lesson with Hans Neinzer. That was great. And 1 lesson with Peter Rieckhoff, 2 people from Germany. But generally, I wasn't too into taking lessons because I knew it all, That was a horrible attitude, but that's what attitude I had.
Could you tell the story of Kalman Block?
I'll go backwards. We were in New York walking. I think he had just quit the orchestra, and we were walking in New York near Columbia University, and he wanted to be a dentist. So we're walking around, and he says, "Gee, do you think they'll give me my $200 back for the fee to enter Columbia? Because what happened is," and he had all his dentist tools that I played with for years. So he wanted to be a dentist. He would have been a terrible dentist, but that's another story. It's like not good with the hands. Anyway, so he and I got along really well. That was a good question to ask. But his story is that he was in the boys' band, some playing the fife in 1920 or something. And he went to Bellison, Simeon Bellison, the great teacher in New York, and he asked for lessons. So he got lessons. So he studied with Bellison, and Bellison, after each lesson, would take $2 out of his wallet and put it back in. "Thanks for paying me. You got a scholarship." The bad thing about Bellison, or maybe the good thing, is he played for 1 year. My father, Kalman Block, you pronounce it better, Block. Or if it's from the Ukraine, or Ukraine Block. Whatever. Anyway, he would spent a year playing double embouchure. Simeon Bellison looked at it and he says, "Oh my God, you're playing double embouchure and you're playing a German clarinet." I mean, he was just sort of not too aware of either equipment or embouchure. So he got him back on the Böhm system, and he gave him the single embouchure. But for the rest of his life, he went back and forth. He would say, "Michele, what sounds better, double embouchure?" Because he had an upper lip that just went really much much, not like my teeth, no double embouchure possible. But with him, I mean, you would just go, no problem. So he was always asking, which sounds better? And I always said single embouchure, just because it's more steady, But so he wrote he was first in Bellison's ensemble it was a huge clarinet ensemble, complete with, he had every instrument in the world. He made arrangements for everybody, with drums and trumpet and God knows what. That guy had more energy than 20 people. So he had the big clarinet ensemble. Dad got principal clarinet. And then Dad said, maybe I'll try out for an orchestra. So Bellison said, write a letter to Klemper and then see what happens. Klemper wrote him a letter back, sure, Mr. Block, I'd love to hear you. And he played the piano and they just did a Brahms sonata or something. He says, okay, you win. Didn't have to do any orchestra repertoire or anything. So that's Bellison. And I would visit Mr. Bellison from time to time. I'd go back and see him. He was a great, great man, great musician. Everything I've ever learned is through Bellison directly because we have all the writings on all those old pieces of music. And I'm going to try to find somebody to carry on his legacy. I'm not able to find a publisher to publish all those little pieces I learned from him because Carl Fischer has it. And Carl Fischer, I'm a perfectionist, and they make photocopies. They don't do linotype anymore. So it's not clear. And that was not possible for me, actually. So I try to steal his stuff and redo it again, make a little mistake like Kalman does, but I'm 80 and I'm already tired. So I need somebody to carry on that legacy for me. So Dad went to the orchestra and he hardly played anything. He got in when he was 22. He's like me. Like he just sort of, oh, okay. And then he had to play, his first piece was Firebird by Stravinsky. And he was he was like counting like a sucker, But he did it. He always had good rhythm. And Perrier, the man he replaced, was a gentleman. Because the conductor said, go away, Perrier, and come in here, Kalman. And Perrier would help my dad. I would have just gotten a little angry, but not Mr. Perrier. So there was a lot of French players at the time. Henri Debouchet was the oboe player from whom my father learned a lot. A lot of great players then, So he went to the orchestra when he was 23 and put his dental equipment, in one spot and just went crazy for the 37 years he played in the orchestra with mouthpieces and reeds, like we all do. Especially him, though. Dad changed his mouthpiece like I changed my underpants. It's like really crazy. And that's like every day. Just share that with you, okay?
What did you learn after all these years at the LA Phil?
That's a good question. Well, I learned the whole repertoire. I hold at least 150 years of repertoire. And if you were to, I could, it's like I can do one thing really well. Don't ask me to cook, you know what I mean? But something, I have a confession, okay? I hear a Beethoven symphony and, it's cut from the same cloth. Which Beethoven symphony am I listening to now? I get them mixed up a little bit. It might be old age. And sometimes a little with Brahms too, but never with Mozart. Maybe that's the determination of what the greatest composer is Mozart. And, I'm thinking Schubert, I like Schubert better than Beethoven now. Why is that? But anyway, I love music. I never approached it clarinet-wise. I just listened to great singers, pianists, violinists, cellists, Taragato players, whatever. So that's how I approached music.
Did you change the way you listen to music?
Yes, because for the first 10, I got in 1961, and until 1961 and 72, I was playing French system. And we had our idols, Gigliotti, all the first players in America. But actually, when I was young, all I had was the Concerto Weber number 1 by some German guy who had this strange, funny little whiny tone. And that was my Weber first, I think. I thought, his sound is terrible, but he's so musical. Anyway, so as I got older, as I changed, so I liked the French-American school, and then as I got older, I liked the Viennese, such a dark tone that you could hardly tell one note from the next. That was my goal. You know how that changes. So now I sort of like halfway between German and Viennese and whatever. Yeah, it's all different now.
A concert that you will always remember?
Okay, here we go. Oh my God, I came in a measure early. That's the one I remember. I played it well, but it was just a little too early by like a measure and a half. I did play a lot of great concerts. The great concerts were in Lockenhaus with Dietrich Fischer-Dieskau and Alfred Brendel on Der Winterreise by Schubert. The ones that I wasn't involved in. And then I heard Von Karajan do Mahler Ninth in Pasadena with the Berlin Philharmonic, and that was awesome just because he was German, you know. Thereby, he had to be good, right? And so already that was good. Just, God, he looks, of course, I realized later he wasn't German, but he was Armenian, but that's okay.
Which conductor impressed you the most?
Pierre Montreux, George Pretre, Joseph Krips. I like this Beethoven. It depends on the piece. But I was a person who had LPs and long plays and the little records, the big records, and so I had an amalgamation of my favorite Beethoven Ninth, which was Furtwängler on the first movement of the Beethoven Ninth, Weingartner on the second movement on the Beethoven Ninth. I mean, I really was like, I was just a nerd about all that stuff. And then for Brahms' Fourth, I like De Sabata. And for, I could just name the piece and I'll tell you the conductor who I thought was great. Everyone loves Toscanini, but I don't feel him so much. I love Weingartner when he did, Mendelssohn. I mean, you name it. I mean, it's all in my head, and I've never forgotten. You know who is the great Beethoven Third? Brahms Third is Frederick Stock with the Chicago Symphony with Robert Lindemann playing the clarinet. That was the greatest. So, I mean, I just had that in my ear, and I had to sell my records for financial reasons, but I still hear it all.